You don't remember the moment the universe stopped caring about your consent. You remember the sound. A tearing noise like metal screaming underwater, followed by weightlessness, so sudden it feels like your organs lag behind your body by half a second. Your wrench floats out of your hand. The floor vanishes. The walls bend inward as if reality itself has been pinched between fingers too large to comprehend. And then darkness. When you wake up, the first thing you smell is ozone and burned insulation. The second thing you realize is that gravity feels wrong, not absent, not 0G, just off. Like the ship can't quite decide which direction down is supposed to be. You open your eyes slowly. The ceiling above you pulses faintly, veins of blue light crawling beneath translucent metal. Alien, definitely alien. Too smooth, too organic. Like someone grew a spaceship instead of building it. You sit up and immediately regret it. Pain flares across your ribs. Your hands are cuffed behind your back with something warm and faintly vibrating, like a living cable. You twist instinctively. It tightens. Not cutting, not burning. Just enough pressure to say, "Don't try that again." You exhale through your teeth. "Okay," you mutter. Kidnapped. Classic. A shadow moves beyond the curved doorway. Then another. And then they step into the room. They're tall. Taller than you. Broad-shouldered, plated in overlapping armor that looks grown rather than forged. Their heads are elongated, faces sharp and angular, eyes set too far apart, large, glossy, and unblinking. Their skin carries a faint metallic sheen, like oil on water. One of them tilts its head. Another clicks its mandibles softly. You've fixed generators older than your parents. You've crawled through reactor shafts while alarms screamed countdowns in your ear. You've learned one thing that applies everywhere, every time. If you panic, you die. So you don't scream. You don't beg. You look around instead. The room is a holding bay, not a cell. No bars. No force field. Just space. Equipment racks. Diagnostic displays scrolling symbols you don't recognize, but patterns you do. Power readouts, structural integrity graphs. A faint vibration under your boots that tells you something big is happening elsewhere in the ship. One of the aliens steps forward. A device unfolds from its wrist, projecting a shimmer of symbols into the air. The symbols rearrange themselves, distort, and then settle into broken but understandable English. Human mechanic, it says. Its voice sounds layered, like several throats speaking at once. You were selected for your technical aptitude. You raise an eyebrow? Cool, you say. I usually get kidnapped for my personality. A flicker passes through their eyes. Confusion? Irritation? You will assist, the alien continues. Your species has demonstrated adaptive problem-solving under extreme conditions. You snort. Yeah, we call that being broke and desperate. The alien ignores the comment. This vessel is engaged in faster-than-light transit, it says. A critical inefficiency has arisen within the propulsion lattice. Our engineers have failed. That gets your attention. FTL. Not warp like in the movies. Not hyperspace. Real FTL, where the universe itself is being convinced, very politely and with a lot of energy, to look the other way while you cheat causality. You glance down at the floor again, at the subtle vibration, at the way the light bends just slightly wrong around the walls. You're in FTL right now? You ask. Yes, you laugh. It slips out before you can stop it. A short, sharp bark of disbelief. Wow, that's brave. Or stupid. The aliens stiffen. Our technology surpasses your civilization by centuries. Yeah, I know, you interrupt. But that doesn't change physics. It just means you found more creative ways to annoy it. Silence. Then the lead alien gestures sharply. The cuffs release. You rub your wrists slowly, standing as you do. No one stops you. That tells you two things. They done to think you a threat, and they desperate enough to take that risk. You follow them through the ship. The corridors curve organically, spiraling rather than turning. Panels shift out of the way as you pass, responding to the alien's presence. You note the absence of handholds. No emergency ladders. No obvious redundancy systems. That's interesting. Finally, they bring you into the engine chamber, and you stop dead. The FTL core dominates the room like a captured star. Layers of rotating rings surround a central void, a space that hurts to look at directly, like staring at the sun through water. Energy arcs between the rings, forming patterns that almost make sense. Almost. You whistle low. Who designed this? You ask, our greatest minds. You nod slowly. Did any of them ever work as a mechanic? The alien bristles. Explain. You step closer, ignoring the warning hum from the floor. Heat washes over your face. You feel it in your teeth. This thing is beautiful, you say. Genuinely. Elegant. But it's designed by people who assume everything will work perfectly forever. You point at one of the outer rings. That coupling is under constant microshear stress during FTL, isn't it? Yes. And you compensated by reinforcing it instead of rerouting the load. Yes. Which means every time you jump, you're grinding that component down just a little more. The aliens exchange looks. You are. Correct. The lead one admits reluctantly. Congrats, you say. Your ship is slowly tearing itself apart. And because you're in FTL, you can't shut the system down without, let me guess, you trail off, eyeing the core. Causality backlash. Best case, you drop out of FTL as radioactive mist. Worst case, you become a very brief historical anomaly. One of the aliens makes a sound that might be a curse. How do we repair it? It demands. You scratch your chin. Well, you say slowly. Normally, I'd say you need to power down, replace the coupling, recalibrate the lattice, and test in real space. They stare at you. But you continue. Since you're currently doing the cosmic equivalent of changing lanes at light years per second, you grin. We're going to have to do something much dumber. You start removing panels. The aliens protest. Alarms chirp. Systems fluctuate. You ignore all of it. You work. Hands moving on instinct. You trace energy flows by feel rather than sight. You reroute power, not to strengthen the failing parts, but to let them fail safely. You introduce controlled weaknesses. Flex points. Places where stress can bleed off instead of snapping catastrophically. The ship shudders. FTL turbulence spikes. One of the aliens shouts, "Stop! You will destroy US." You don't look up. "If I stop," you say calmly, "you die in about 3 minutes. If I keep going, you might survive." A long pause. Proceed. Sweat drips into your eyes. The core screams audibly now, a sound felt more than heard. You rip out a component that looks far too important to remove mid-flight and replace it with a jury-rigged bypass using alien cabling and a piece of diagnostic hardware you definitely weren't meant to touch. The vibration smooths out. The lights stabilize. The screaming fades to a low hum. Silence fills the chamber. Then, FTL efficiency restored, the ship announces. You sag against the railing, chest heaving. The aliens stare at the core, then at you. You altered our propulsion philosophy, the lead alien says slowly. You introduced intentional imperfection. You nod tiredly. Yeah, you say, perfection breaks. Imperfection bends. Another alien steps forward. You dismantled our ship, it says, voice tight. While we were inside faster than light. You look up at them, eyes bloodshot, grin crooked. Relax, you reply. I put it back together better. None of them know it yet. But in that moment, standing in the heart of their most advanced vessel, you have just taught an interstellar civilization something terrifying. Humans don't just survive impossible systems. They understand them, and next time, you won't be fixing the ship. You'll be deciding who gets to keep one. The first thing you notice after saving their ship is that no one tells you what happens next. No chains, no guards posted at your door, no ceremonial gratitude or threats. Just quiet, thick, watchful quiet like a machine is still running, but has stopped making noise so it can hear you breathe. They give you quarters, not a cell, not a barracks. A room shaped for a species that isn't yours, but adjusted. Gravity tuned closer to Earth normal. Atmospheric mix subtly altered. Temperature set to something you'd call comfortable if you didn't know better. That alone tells you more than any interrogation could. They're not sure whether you're a prisoner, a consultant, or a liability they don't yet know how to contain. You sit on the edge of the resting platform and roll your shoulders, feeling the ache settle into your bones. The ship hums beneath you different now, smoother, more forgiving. You recognize the rhythm the way a mechanic recognizes an engine by sound alone. They didn't revert your changes. They kept them, which means someone, somewhere, ran the numbers and realized you were right. Hours pass, or minutes. FTL messes with your sense of time. Eventually, the door irises open without warning. 3 aliens enter. Not engineers this time. These ones move differently, slower, deliberate. Their armor is darker, less ornate, marked with subtle geometric scars that look ceremonial rather than functional. Command, you think? The one in the center speaks. Human, it says. You will accompany us. You stand without arguing. When you follow them through the ship, you notice something new. Eyes. Crew members pause their work as you pass. Conversations falter. Mandibles still. Heads tilt in unison. Word travels fast on a starship, especially when someone nearly dies and lives anyway. They bring you to a chamber overlooking the engine core, not inside it, but adjacent. A strategic vantage point. Observation decks layered with holographic displays showing the ship's trajectory, internal stresses, and something else that makes your stomach tighten. Weapons. A lot of them. The commander gestures, and the displays shift. Star maps bloom into view. Routes highlighted in red. Clusters of systems marked with symbols you don't recognize, but instinctively understand. These are our operational zones, the commander says. We are the Carveth Dominion. Ah, that explains the kidnapping. You're pirates, you say. The word translates poorly, but the meaning lands. We are enforcers of acquisition, the commander replies coolly. Your people would call us raiders, slavers? You ask flatly. A pause. Yes, you don't react. Not outwardly. You file it away, neat and cold. The commander continues. Your species has recently entered our peripheral range. Your technology is crude, but your adaptability is noteworthy. You snort quietly. Funny way to say you underestimated us. A flicker of irritation passes through the room. We did, the commander admits. That error will not be repeated. They zoom in on a highlighted system. We intend to expand operations, it says. However, our encounters with your kind have resulted in disproportionate losses. You raise an eyebrow. You picked fights with humans? Yes. And lived? Sometimes that earns a grin. The commander turns to face you fully. You dismantled our propulsion system mid-transit and rebuilt it into a configuration our own engineers failed to conceive. It says, explain why. You shrug. Because your engineers don't fix things that break, you say. They design things that shouldn't. Silence. You build systems that assume compliance. You continue. Reality doesn't comply. It argues, loudly. Humans grew up arguing back. One of the officers shifts uncomfortably. You imply superiority, the commander says. No, you reply. I imply experience. The commander studies you for a long moment. Then you will explain another anomaly, it says, gesturing sharply. The displays change again. Footage appears security feeds from earlier raids. Humans in panic. Ships disabled. Boarding actions. Then something else. A human cargo hauler with engines blown dead in space. Carveth boarding teams moving in confidently. And then chaos. The footage stutters as explosions ripple inside the ship. Bulkheads rupture. Atmosphere vents. The boarders fall back in disarray. You recognize the pattern instantly. They booby-trapped their own ship, you murmur. Yes, the commander says. They destroyed critical systems rather than surrender. You nod. Standard protocol, you say. If capture is worse than death, that logic is inefficient. Survival often is, you reply. Until it isn't. The commander leans closer. We require understanding, it says. Your species exhibits irrational resistance, disproportionate retaliation, and a willingness to self-sabotage, to deny advantage. You meet its gaze. Because you don't understand what you're fighting, you say quietly. And what is that? You tap the display. People who grew up with systems that fail, you say. Governments, economies, machines. We learned early that if you wait for permission or perfection, you die. So we improvise. The room goes still. We want you, the commander says, to teach us this improvisation. There it is, not execution, not imprisonment, recruitment. You laugh once, sharp and humorless. You enslave my people, you say, and you want lessons? We offer survival, the commander replies. Yours. You step closer to the glass overlooking the core. Here's the thing, you say. You already failed the first lesson. And that is, you assumed control, you say. Humans don't operate that way. We operate on leverage. The commander stiffens. What leverage do you possess? You gesture casually toward the engine. The fact that your ship only works because I touched it, you say. And every jump from now on depends on a philosophy you don't fully understand. A dangerous silence settles. The commander's eyes narrow. You would threaten us aboard our own vessel? You shake your head. No, you say. I'm explaining reality. You're already flying a human-modified ship, and you don't know how to undo it without breaking something important. They don't deny it. That's when you know you've crossed from captive to problem. They assign you to engineering, not as a subordinate, as an advisor. You're given access partial, but expanding. You walk the guts of the ship, seeing flaws everywhere. Over-engineered systems. Single points of failure disguised as elegance. Redundancies that all fail the same way because they were designed by the same minds. You start leaving notes. Not orders, annotations. You sketch alternatives, add stress relief channels, create manual overrides that require physical presence and intuition rather than command authorization. The engineers resist at first. Then a coolant surge hits, and your bypass prevents a cascade failure. Then a power fluctuation during weapons charging, and your reroute prevents a feedback loop. Slowly, grudgingly, they stop arguing. You overhear whispers. They start calling your modifications human loops. You don't correct them. Days, maybe weeks pass like this. Then the alarms sound. Real space reversion imminent. Combat readiness spikes. You re on a gantry above engineering when the ship drops out of FTL with a bone-jarring lurch. The view screens light up. A human convoy. Civilian-marked ships. Escorts scrambling too late. The commander's voice echoes through the bay. Prepare boarding, Arties. Your stomach knots. You move before you think. You override a local control node, something you quietly installed 3 days ago, for diagnostics. Power flow shifts. Boarding clans hesitate. What did you do? An engineer demands. You don't answer. On the main display, something else changes. The convoy's engines don't die. They surge. The human ships accelerate in unpredictable vectors, erratic, messy, alive. The commander snarls. They should be disabled. They won't be, you say calmly, stepping into the open channel. Because I fixed your ship to stop breaking itself. Silence crashes down. You sabotaged us, the commander hisses. No, you reply. I removed your assumption that you were in control. The convoy escapes scarred but intact. Weapons stand down. The ship trembles not from damage, but from something far worse. Uncertainty. The commander turns to you slowly. You will explain this, it says, voice tight with fury. You meet its gaze, unflinching. I just taught you the second lesson, you say. And that is? You smile faintly. Humans don't just survive systems, you say. We decide how they're used. Far away, human ships vanish into the dark. And for the first time since they reached the stars, the Carveth Dominion begins to understand fear. They don't put you in chains after the convoy escapes. That's how you know the situation is worse than anger. Anger is loud, predictable, manageable. What fills the ship instead is calculation. You feel it in the corridor's crew members, pausing half a second longer than before, eyes tracking you with something new layered over fear. Respect, maybe. Or the dawning realization that you're no longer a component in their system. You're an external variable. The commander summons you again. This time, there are no engineers, no observers. Just you, the commander, and a star map projected so large it fills the chamber like a night sky pulled indoors. Red markers blink across it. Human space. You interfered with an authorized operation, the commander says. Its voice is calm, but the calm is strained like a metal beam under load. Explain why you should remain alive. You don't answer immediately. Instead, you study the map, the routes, the choke points, the places where the Dominion's patrols overlap and the places where they don't. They're good, just not good enough. Because killing me won't fix the problem you just discovered, you say at last. And what problem is that? The commander asks. You point to the blinking human systems. You can meet us in stray fights, you say, sometimes. But you can't control us. And now your ship's your doctrine, your entire operational philosophy, depends on systems I touched. The commander's mandibles flex. You overestimate your importance. You shake your head. No, you reply. I understand leverage. You gesture. and the display shifts, something you shouldn't be able to do. But you can, because you quietly rewired command-level display permissions weeks ago under the pretense of signal integrity improvements. The commander notices. Too late. The star map changes color. Simulation overlays appear. Carveth fleets engaging human vessels. Outcomes cascade across the display. Losses spike, disruptions compound. Supply lines fracture, not because they're attacked, but because they stop trusting their own infrastructure. You narrate softly. Humans don't need to win battles, you say. We just need to make your victories expensive, unpredictable, and embarrassing. The commander stares at the projections. These simulations are conservative, you interrupt. I didn't even include civilian interference, freelance sabotage, or the part where humans start copying your tech after the first wrecks fall into our hands. A long silence stretches. You intend rebellion, the commander says. You tilt your head. I intend equilibrium, you reply. Something your dominion has never had to consider. The commander turns away, gazing into the star map. You are one human, it says. Your species is divided, fractured, slow to unite. You smile thinly. That's a myth you keep telling yourselves, you say. We're slow to agree, not slow to react. You step closer. You kidnapped a mechanic, you continue. Not a soldier, not a diplomat. And I still dismantled your ship in FTL, rewrote your operational assumptions, and let a convoy escape under your guns. You let the word settle. Imagine what happens when the rest of my species realizes you exist. The commander's claws tighten. Then speak, it says. What do you want? There it is. Not what will you accept? Not what are your demands? What do you want? You take a breath. I want you out of human space. You say no raids, no acquisitions, no experiments to see how much pain we tolerate before breaking. And in return, the commander asks, you meet its eyes. I'll help you survive what comes next. The commander turns slowly. Explain. You're not the only predators out here, you say. You're just the ones stupid enough to announce yourselves. The galaxy's about to change fast. Humans don't stay isolated once we know where the doors are. You gesture at the star map again. You can be the empire that tried to break us, you say. Or the one that learned it early. Why, that was a bad idea. Silence grips the chamber. Minutes pass. Then you will remain aboard, the commander says. As a liaison, you nod. Fine, you say. But we do this my way. And your way is, it asks. You grin. Messy, you reply. Redundant, decentralized, and very hard to kill. The changes begin quietly. You don't announce them. You seed them. Human-style fail-safes. Distributed command nodes. Independent crews trained to improvise rather than await orders. Engineering protocols rewritten to prioritize survivability over elegance. The Carveth resist. Then a reactor incident non-hostile. Random nearly kills them all. Your systems save the ship. Again, the whispers change tone. You're no longer the human. You're the architect. Months pass. Human ships stop vanishing at the frontier. Then Carveth patrols quietly reroute around human systems. Then a rumor spreads unconfirmed, untraceable, that some Dominion vessels now carry encrypted human advisory channels. Unofficial, deniable, effective. You finally leave the ship when a neutral relay station is reached. The commander watches as you prepare to depart. You will tell your people, it says, not a question. Yes, you reply. What will you say? You pause at the airlock. That you're not monsters, you say. Just arrogant. The commander inclines its head. And will they believe you? You look back, eyes hard. They don't need to, you say. They'll believe the warning. The shuttle detaches. Stars stretch. Real space welcomes you back with familiar violence. When you arrive home, the debriefs last weeks. Governments argue. Militaries posture. Corporations salivate. You tell them everything. And one thing more. Don't rush, you say. Let them watch us adapt. Humanity does what it always does. We learn. We copy. We prepare. Years later, historians will argue about the moment the balance of power in the galaxy shifted. Some will point to first contact. Some to the first interstellar war that never quite happened. But you'll know the truth. It changed the moment aliens kidnapped a human mechanic and learned that humans don't just fix broken systems. We rewrite them from the inside until even empires start running on human rules.